people think of great sequels to video games, they often think of games such as Street Fighter 2, Arkham City, Red Dead Redemption 2, Ratchet & Clank 2, or one of my favorites, Devil May... Oh, I'm just sorry, I'm sorry, I couldn't contain myself. We all know how great that game is, wink. But what makes a great sequel? I feel it is the perfection of the first title's mechanics, maybe getting rid or replacing old mechanics, not really adding to the formula, although there are many games that change it greatly and still come out good. Looking at you, Jak 2. But Sonic 2 is not like Jak 2. It saw what worked in Sonic 1, pushed those heavily, and saw what didn't, and either minimize those issues or remove them entirely. So come with me to see that Sonic 2, released in 1992 by Sega for the Sega Genesis, is how you make a sequel. Cue the intro editor! Oh wait, that's right, I'm the editor. With the huge hit that was Sonic 1, Sega knew they had a hit on their hands, making shows and basically turning Sonic into a multimedia icon. But they also had to prove that Sonic wasn't a one-and-done franchise, and so they wanted to make an even greater game. But sadly, the three main directors of the game left, including Yuji Naka. Mark Cerny, who wanted to put the project back up to speed. So he discussed with Yuji Naka to come back to the Sonic team, which he eventually did. Early on, they wanted to make the gist of the game to be centered around time travel. That Eggman went into the past and that it was up to Sonic to stop him, with there being past, present, and future versions of the map, which, yes, Sonic 2 was meant to have an overworld like Mario World. And you can still see a part of this in the game, because Hilltop Zone was meant to be the past version of Emerald Hill Zone, as you can tell by similar aesthetics. But eventually, because the team had 5 months less of development time than Sonic 1, they scrapped the idea, and obviously that idea became the basis for Sonic CD. But that review is for another day. Further, the 90s were a time for innovation in the gaming industry. So with many people playing the 2D games on the 8-bit systems, some wanted to see what a stab at the Z-axis would look like. Thus, in Sonic 2, you can find few objects that were 3D rendered, then rotoscoped with blocky pixels, such as the corkscrew in Emerald Hills or the hamster cage in Metropolis, or another place which I'll get to later. All this is good and all, but how will it reach the public? With Sonic 1, a copy was given with every purchase of the Genesis, but with the starting years of the console gone, the amount of sales that Sonic 2 would reach wouldn't be nearly as high as the first game. So, they started a whole campaign titled Sonic Tuesday, later giving rise to why many games release on Tuesday. But this wasn't just a regular release. The game universally would be available on the same day, which gave rise to many problems for the team, for they had to make multiple ports of the same game universally and ship them out to retailers. First thing I want to cover are the changes from Sonic 1 to 2, because let me tell you, Sonic 1 had a lot of issues. I'm going to keep my synopsis brief on Sonic 1, because this is its sequels review. But keep in mind that Sonic 1 felt long, tedious, had bad platforming, and very slow compared to what it should have been. But even when you do go fast, there were unpredictable enemies with the most annoying hitboxes. And here in Sonic 2, they fixed all these issues. First off was the pacing of the game. Now, if I'm doing my math straight, Sonic 1 had 6 zones and 3 acts, with a boss as the last act, plus the final zone, totaling to 19 levels. But the fact that each zone had 3 acts made you feel like you're stuck in molasses trying to get through each level. But you could say, well, Sonic 2 has 21 levels. But to that, the pacing of each zone is superb. Well, which, if you know math, that also means there's more variety in aesthetics and mechanics throughout the game, with there being 11 zones, if you include the final zone. But there are still more bosses and way better bosses at that. All you gotta see to prove that there's a difference of the Labyrinth Zone to the Aquatic Ruins boss. Basically, very similar levels with much different enjoyment levels, and you can see that all throughout the game. Chemical Plant to Marble, Aquatic Ruins to Labyrinth, and the most glaring one, Spring Yard to Casino Night. Spring Yard was possibly the worst level in Sonic 1, and maybe Casino Night isn't the best level in the game, but it is certainly way better than its previous iteration. But another factor in making this game feel more bite-sized is the level design itself. Through the first game, Sonic only really had 2 zones dedicated to speed, and funny enough, those were the best levels, Green Hills and Stardust Zone. Yet, here in Sonic 2, they fixed this issue heavily. The only levels you don't go fast in are the final zone, but that's for obvious reasons. So with these decreases in acts per zone and the increase in speed due to level designs, it makes the run of this game feel much more enjoyable and painless. Another change to the game were the special stages. Now previously, if you had 50 rings by the end of a level, you would just jump through a ring to go to a special stage. Now, those stages were pretty bad in weird mazes, but this is one of the only step downs from the previous game, which is why I'm saying that Sonic 2 is great, but not a perfect sequel. They make one positive change in making the stages pop up as dust over the checkpoints with 50 rings. Good change, right? This allows for more chances to go to the stages, but the stages in this game are worse in the majority of people's opinion, including myself. So, in Sonic 1, there was a trippy maze that moved slowly counterclockwise, and the goal was to move Sonic in his ball form around the maze to get one of the 6 Chaos Emeralds. Oh yeah, another change is from 6 to 7 Chaos Emeralds. Then that's it. You do it and get flowers at the end of the game. But in Sonic 2, they wanted to show some of the possibilities of 3D. So they made a circular ramp dodge mini game thingy. It's really just an awful version of Run 3. This is disappointing because they had many good ideas with the new way to enter these stages. It's just sad that the stages themselves suck booty. Another minimal change from 1 to 2 is that of the art direction. As you can see, Sonic has a slight redesign, and overall Sonic 2 feels more like a normal adventure as opposed to weird-ass zones like Marble or Scrap Brain Zone, giving an overall more upbeat feeling, making the series even more approachable with brighter colors. And also, I just want to add this, but the addition of a Death Egg is pretty hilarious. Now that you've seen what Sonic 2 has changed, which is a huge monumental task for the sequel, but you don't just want to turn out the same game with slight differences, because at that point you just made Ninja Gaiden, then Ninja Gaiden Black, and then you make Ninja Gaiden Sigma. So you gotta add to the formula, and add to this formula they did. The biggest and possibly best addition to any franchise ever was the Spin Dash. You thought I was talking about Tails. I cannot stress enough how much of a game changer this simple move was. Previously, in Sonic 1, you had to go backwards just to go forward again to pick up speed. This was a huge slog for a game based around speed. Thus, a way to circumvent this issue was to create the Spin Dash. If you don't know, the Spin Dash lets you rev up in a ball in order to go forward fast. But also you can further rev it, which I didn't know. But nonetheless, this was such an improvement that in later ports and releases of Sonic 1, they added the Spin Dash, which tinkering with older games is often frowned upon, but not if the move is as good as the Spin Dash. But in addition to that, this wonderful mechanic is side by side with one of the greatest sidekicks ever. With Sonic being a cool, confident, capable hero, his second part is anything but. Miles per hour, a joke for miles per hour, also known as Tails, is a young, naive, shy admirer of Sonic. Think of him as Gohan to Sonic's Goku. Shit, another commonality between the two franchises. But yet, they all share the same trait, being brave. And I'm not going to dive into the story of this game because, I mean, there isn't really one. But at the end of the game, Tails saves Sonic with his own creation, proving to not only himself, but also the world that he himself is a capable hero, saving the man that saves everybody else. But with another character comes multiplayer. Now early, even from the development of Sonic 2, they had programmed split screen. And with Tails being an addition, it was the perfect way to incorporate the co-op. Talking about Dragon Ball, throughout the game, after collecting the Chaos Emeralds, which I mentioned earlier, you unlock Super Sonic, baby! Fuck yeah! Suck that, Goku, you ain't got red eyes, you got blue ones, you fucking loser! But nonetheless, in the previous games, getting the Emeralds only unlock a slightly different credits. But in this game, there's a full-on cheat, where the Emeralds teleport you to the secret palace zone, but obviously that got scrapped. But when you do have all the Emeralds, you can press up and jump to transform, making you impervious to everything except bottomless pits, water, and surprisingly time. But I guess even those faster than light cannot escape the intimate force that is death. But those are really all the additions to the game. Really little, but mostly I feel a great first sequel is what perfects the mechanics, whereas the third installment is what normally adds to it. Not always, of course, there are exceptions. I'm just saying that's the norm. If there's something you think I missed in the last 2 sections, please let me know. I'm just trying to make the best retro content I can, so criticism is an aid to that path. So please like and subscribe. With that being said, let's go to the next segment. Now, I did say the levels did improve, but I want to further elaborate on that. Here in Sonic 2, the levels are just so much less infuriating and better. Let's look at Casino Night. Again, not the best level in the game, but still a fun experience. First off, this isn't meant to be a hard level, more of a showcase of the physics of the game, which is why it's in the earlier part of the game. It's just pure Sega fun, man. with its own sonic spice doing things that other platformers could only dream of. That being a literal pinball. Okay, well, I guess Samus could do that. And throughout the entire game, you can see Sonic do things that only Sonic can do, such as go around in a spiral, help Bob the Builder tighten his bolts, or drill through the floor to the underground. And also, I feel like these levels are just more unique feeling and just formatted better than the first. Maybe it's also because the mechanics of each level are better spread across the 2 acts instead of 3, but also to help add to the individuality of this game are again the bosses. Each boss, I feel, is actually inspired by the level design itself, using either the aesthetics of the level to inspire the fight or the mechanics throughout the level. So yet another very enjoyable part of the game. Finally, one of the most undeniable strengths of Sonic 1 was the soundtrack, as its follow-up is no different. Sonic 2 possibly houses even more iconic tunes than its predecessor, with Chemical Plant being an absolute classic. Yes, sadly, this game is not perfect. Just like its predecessor, this game suffers from unforeseeable enemies and obstacles, leading to having you reset the pace of the game, which you don't want to do after having a nice hit of speed. I want more. But also, sometimes throughout the levels, you kind of just get lost. Like in Oil Ocean, Mystic Cave, and for me at least, I got lost at this section in the Flying Fortress. But there's also a gimmick stage in this game, with Tails being a genius. He builds his own airplane titled the Tornado. So Sonic rides on top of the tornado, and boom, gimmick stage. And to be honest, this level isn't great. It's not awful by any means. It's pretty short after all, but to move around you kind of have to lean against the edge of the airplane to move, which gives a hint of unresponsiveness. So really mid, and it's kind of weird jumping and overall weird. But also there are just some annoying enemies in this game, like those damn starfish in Metropolis Zone, which talking about that level, I think it's my least favorite in the game. For some kind of boring visuals, lame mechanics, and for some reason a third act. Actually, it's not that weird because it was a scrap stage from another futuristic level, but I mean, yes, there are a few bummers, like Hilltop Zone is kind of weird and boring, and Oil Ocean just confusing to commute through. Overall, there are issues that detract from this game. Also, the Death Egg hitbox. Now, I don't think it's unpredictable hitbox like many others think, but it is still a very tight and hard to pass through hitbox. My final consensus about this game is that it's good. It's an enjoyable game. It does still have some issues yet to be kinked out, but it is still much improved over the original. So yes, Sonic 2 is a great sequel, not quite a perfect sequel, frankly. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my video. Please be sure to either check out my Sonic 1 retro review or maybe my Sonic 2 playthrough where I had some fun. Subscribe if you have not, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.